right. I'm getting the cue that we're ready to go. And so in the interest of time, we're going to start. Thank you, Tyler. Thank you, guests, for being here. I want to welcome you to virtual New Dramatists and this afternoon's event, New Dramatists in Conversation, the Inception to World Premiere Story of Sabina by Willy Holtzman, Louise Beach, and Darrah Cloud, currently on stage at Portland Stage Company in Maine, through Sunday, May 22nd, but starting tomorrow, it can be streamed through Sunday, June 5th. I'm Emily Morse, Artistic Director of New Dramatists, a 73-year-old artistic home and laboratory for playwrights. Dedicated to the playwright, the mission of this organization has been to serve and advocate for the individual and collective interests of a diverse, eclectic company of about 59 visionary playwrights. Each company member is offered a self-guided 7-year residency for free. And in that time, their creative, artistic process investigations are supported with access to space, time, leadership opportunities, as well as a vibrant company of peer playwrights and other artists. I am joined here today by the creative team of Sabina. We have playwright Willy Holtzman, who is a New Dramatist alum and board member. We have lyricist Darrah Cloud, who is also a playwright and an alum of New Dramatists, and composer Louise Beach. We have co-directors Daniela Topol and Danilo Gambini, and Anita Stewart, who is the designer of the production, but also the executive and artistic director of Portland Stage Company. It's a very busy group here. New Dramatists in Conversation focuses on playwrights and theater makers and how they make their work. The unique journey of Sabina spans many years of development and involves fortifying collaborations along the way, including 2 directors co-directing this current production and a designer who is also the producer. All this, a pandemic, and more in today's conversation. Willy, I wanted to just start, you and Darrah weeks ago just started talking about the inception of the play, and I thought we should sort of start there and then kind of go through the evolution of its development to this moment of production. So let's start with you.
Just briefly, this is a lot of years back, 1996, I was approached by producer Susan Rose, who had been a board member at New Dramatists, keep it all in the family, and her producing partner, Jackie Judd, to write a play about Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung. And I had just read a book that nobody else in America or anywhere else had read called A Secret Symmetry. My wife was an editor at Random House at the time, and they gave away books that nobody read to employees. She brought it home, and it was about Freud, Jung, and at that point, an unknown woman named Sabina Spielrein, whose diaries and letters had been found. She had been a young woman from Rostov in Russia, was sent to the Bergozli Asylum in Zurich. She was diagnosed with something that was called psychotic hysteria back then, and arrived catatonic, became a private patient of Carl Jung's when he was trying to win the attention of Sigmund Freud, and it went from there. So Susan and Jackie commissioned the play, developed at New Dramatists, and also at Carnegie Mellon with Frank Galliano, another New Dramatist alum. So a lot of New Dramatists in this, and then it eventually premiered in New York at Primary Stages. The founder, artistic director was Casey Child, a former New Dramatist staff member. So that's the inception.
Okay, that's fantastic. Thank you. All the New Dramatists, as you were saying before. So then, okay, it was a play and it was produced as such. Can you then talk a little bit about its process towards becoming a musical? How did the play become a musical? When did Louise get involved? Where did Darrah come in? Or, what's that evolution of the play to a musical, please?
Well, I'll just briefly hand it over to Louise. Let me say first that when I was researching the play, there was very little primary scholarship on Sabina at the time. So I did a lot of my own initial research, but I was also helped immensely by a Jungian analyst named Brewster Beach, who happened to be Louise's father. And so a few years later, I think it was after the play was revived. The first time was done with Marin Hinkle, second time with Marin Ireland. So it's only been done with Marin Marins. And Louise was a member of the BMI workshop, and you can describe what happened then, Louise.
So just to back up, because I think this is also part of the New Dramatist thread, I graduated from with a master's in composition and no experience writing for theater. And I was kind of saying to Will, like, you know, I want to keep being in that warm bath that I was in school and keep writing. And what do I do? And he said, join the New Dramatist composer librettist studio. So that really set everything in motion for me. Ben and Roger were just kind of gave me the whole definition of how to work with music theater versus musical theater, and gave me the kind of spacious definition of that. So then I went to BMI after that amazing experience at New Dramatists, and proceeded through the class levels and needed a project to get into the advanced class, and came home and said to my husband, so let's brainstorm cool projects. And he immediately thought of Sabina, which we had just seen the two productions of and were blown away by. And I think my first thought was, nah, it's too something, and I can't remember what that something was, too complete in and of itself, maybe too perfect for me to interrupt that with music somehow. Anyway, that became my project, and I think BMI was scratching their heads ever since. What is this? Is it music theater? Is it musical theater, or is it opera? And that's what New Dramatists, the people at New Dramatists, Ben and Roger, never would have scratched their heads. In fact, yeah, they got it early on. Just what we were trying to do was maybe something in the middle or something beyond both of those categories. So that's how it got its start.
So interesting. I'm wondering, I mean, I'm very curious about this notion of, I mean, that the play was perfect in and of itself. And I remember working with Lynn Thompson at some point, great dramaturg, who said, you know, when you want to adapt something, you think about the form in which it already exists, and is that its form? And so how or why would you adapt it? And so I'm curious a little bit about what was required in the adapting to allow it to be its own thing. So that's one question. And then I'm curious then how Darrah came into the picture. But Louise, do you want to, and Will, I guess, to sort of address that a little bit? What was the conversation to how to allow it to be its own thing?
Well, I think Darrah will have a lot to say on this, but I will just get you to Darrah by saying that at BMI, we had to choose partners to work with. So I chose somebody, probably the best lyricist in the group. And he wrote these tidy, beautiful little gems of lyrics that I still have in a drawer somewhere, the songs that we set to those. And they just weren't getting us into the sprawling chaos that was to wait. As we got into it's almost like we had a sweater and we had to completely unravel it and then start knitting a new sweater that had like 50 arms or something. I don't know, it became something so different. But he was doing was staying very true to that original and just setting these perfect little gems. So pretty soon, Will and I realized we needed someone who would take us into the larger world of Sabina. And he suggested Darrah. And Darrah unraveled the sweater and helped us sew it you know, knit it back up into something completely different. She was the one who had kind of this big vision of, and created completely different worlds that weren't in the play at all. And just expanded it in just the right way.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because, you know, and this is a wonderful question to ask. Musical theater is epic in nature. It's not what you know, a straight play is. It's a different form, which is great when you're dealing with a play that is really good. So you don't have to bastardize the good play. You create something new. And I think that one of the ways that Louise and I have worked on this in particular for writing the songs has been this amazing process where we'll start with some lyrics, she'll write the music, then we need to change the lyrics because we figured something else out about the book. Will has made some rewrites. We need to do a plot change or something, but we still have this beautiful song and it still pertains. And I have to rewrite the lyrics now to the music.
It was such yeah.
It's been amazing. And to me, we found the musical version of Sabina in a way by doing that, by having this bizarre conversation that kept changing as we went along. And it was in the process of constant revision over many years that the style emerged and the whatever inspired the look of it. But it was that process that created whatever it is, whether it's opera, musical theater, or something different. It's Sabina, you know, it's her world, it's Will's vision. It's the music takes the emotional life and brings that to life. And as we worked over the years and, you know, had to change the book to kind of accommodate the epic form, you know, we kept learning and finding new emotion for Sabina, new things she would say. And that's how we worked. So that's how we kind of found it.
And I should add that along the way, we also began working on it at the Lark. And we were fortunate enough to be assigned this very young, very brilliant dramaturg named Daniela Topol. So that's how far back she goes with this. Not that she's not young still. That's a segue, Daniela.
Good job, Will, good job.
I mean, I think what is so incredible about this team and what you're hearing is just there's an incredible sense of artistry and collaboration and openness to changing form, to unraveling and re-raveling a thing and letting the thing become something else and bigger than and changing from where it began. And I think that was our process in the production and Danilo's vision with the piece as well, which he can talk to you all about as well. So I just really wish that every team had this sense of respect for one another, a sense of commitment to being in their lane, but also crossing into one another's lane. It's really a complicated dynamic of collaboration. And I think the way that the three of you do it is really incredible. And just the tenacity to go, you know, years on a thing, and the commitment to something over a long period of time is powerful, is really a powerful testament to how vital this story is, how necessary it is, and that it will find its way to life come hell or high water, you know, all along the way. So I'm not sure, Emily, kind of what your rhythm is, if we're skating to Portland or if we want to stop along the way.
Yeah, we'll stop in, New Hampshire for a minute, but I don't know, what's somewhere between. But but thank you, because I'm curious, because I did hear a little bit about the amount of years, and I think I'm wondering, you just want to say how many years, because I think that and combined with the years, because it is about the quantity of time, but I'm also curious sort of what, obviously the story is compelling and there's a very rich and dynamic collaboration, but sort of what drove the project? If you didn't necessarily have a production, unless I'm wrong, in mind. So, and then how often would you revisit it, or what would spark the reconnecting around this project? I'm just sort of curious about that, and then we can, get back in the car and drive farther north. Okay, but I'm just so curious about that too. Like what? Yeah, go ahead.
We had a contract for production with Madison Rep about halfway through the 17-year process to finding Anita. And we were all set, and there were grand plans to bring in a chamber group from the Milwaukee Philharmonic, and then how should we delicately describe it? The artistic director had a messy affair and got fired. So they tore up our contract, and we got busy with other things, and it went into a drawer for a while. And periodically we'd pull it out and get busy again. And we need to make a shout out to Keira Simmering and the Cell Theater, because she found it and got us refocused on it. And I think that got us unstuck. Do I have that right?
That's right, but also a shout out to Peregrine Whittlesey.
Oh, yes.
Okay, she's
Who never gave up.
hugely instrumental and never gave up and kept saying, so what are you guys doing with Sabina? And anyone who knows her can imagine her tenacity.
You sounded just like her, I have to say, Louise. I heard her voice. I hope she's here to hear.
Yeah, no, go ahead, Darrah. She was your gift for the project.
Well, she was a gift to me as a friend and collaborator and agent all these years. We've worked together more than 40 years, I think. Is that right? Yeah. So, no, 30 years. Not that old. Anyway, she's tenacious and loved the project from the beginning. So she was a force of at least reminding us that we still had it and it was still good and worth going forward with.
She was also the one who brought it to Anita's attention.
Yeah. So yeah.
There's a story there too.
Great. Whose story is it to tell?
I don't know that story as well as you do.
Well, Peregrine is a force of nature, and she is so kind, but she is also so committed. And so back in 2018, I think you had done a number of rewrites, and you had done a number of readings of the entire with music in New York City. And Peregrine was just determined to get me to one of these readings, and they kept happening at times when I wasn't going to be in New York. And so finally she found out I was heading down for auditions, and she scheduled, I think you all set up a whole reading so that I could be there, which for me, working at a tiny Lort theater just felt, that felt like, you know, why are you doing this for me? But it was wonderful. And just, I do think this is a play that, a musical, an opera that works so well in the room. It was really hard to hear it and see it well on the page. And so seeing artists really embody it, it really just informed a lot about what this piece was. And so then I committed. I said, all right, let's do this. And back in 2019, we were ready to go. Jackson Gay was going to direct. And but I would say that project was a very different project than the project that we are doing now. And I don't know who would like to speak to that a little bit, because I think that's really, speaking of unraveling sweaters, basically the entire sweater got unraveled again after 2019, and when we were starting to think about coming back and putting it up in a future season.
Last summer, I was at Portland Stage working on another show with another Topol, Richard Topol, and I got a call from Daniela. I had to pull over into a Hilton Gardens parking lot, and she said, "Okay, I'm interested in directing this, but I can't be there the whole time. So I want you to meet this brilliant young Yale director named Danilo." And I'm thinking, this is going to be a problem. Daniela and Danilo, we overcame it. And she said, the other thing is once you meet Danilo and love him and want to work with the two of us as your dual directors, by then it was August, and she said, we're going to start workshopping this now. By then Anita had put us on the calendar for May. And because we're veterans and new dramatists, it made perfect sense to us. And we used every minute of that time.
I think it's also, Willy, the world has changed so dramatically since you started this piece, and what is of interest and what captures our imagination today is something I'm sure is very different than it was 17 years ago, and is even different from what it was in 2019. And I think what was really fantastic was to watch how this team of people who had a piece that they felt like it's all together, it's all happening, were able to take in a whole series of questions and responses to the piece that were coming out of the world that we're in right now. So the Me Too, just and what does that mean, and who is this person, Sabina, and how are we really honoring her? And Daniela and Danilo, I think, were really excellent at sort of putting forward a whole series of questions about what this piece was. And you were open to looking at the structure of it and continuing to work. And my experience with new material, this year we have 5 new plays, and that is not the way that most people tend to like to work.
Thank you.
And through that work, we were assigned after our first week of rehearsals to rewrite the entire second act.
So let's hear that story now.
Well, Danilo, maybe you could.
Yeah, I was thinking
Danilo.
maybe Danilo, you could sort of share your vision and sort of what pulled you into the piece, and then we could talk about the process.
Yeah, I think first of all, it's important for us to say about what it means to co-direct and how we organized it. I think it was a first for me and also first for Daniela. And the most important thing of it all is that Daniela and I are great collaborators and friends, and I admire Daniela so deeply. And so then I think that was kind of very important to how we talk to each other, how we collaborated with each other, how we disagree with each other. I think this was also, it was so important that we have just such a great working collaboration and admiration to one another, that actually this allowed this process to actually happen. And I think we have like also like a running joke, because I will tell that, Daniela, but it's too late now. It is because of course every director has I don't know how, would it be like our artistic personality or our aesthetic investment, right? And what I would say is like the thing that really moves me is the physicality of the scene and how like the symbols operate in space. So I was like, okay, the triangles and the shapes and the movements and the rhythm, and of course dealing with the expectations of the American musical theater aesthetic. So there is, when you say I'm going to see a musical, there's an expectation that you have within you, or and dealing with that, and this really excites me. And Daniela, do you want to talk about like what your excitement is mostly?
I mean, I'm such like a inner to out. So what is happening internally, and how do the steps work internally that make transformation happen?
Mhm.
And so in that way, it's a really beautiful combination because, Danilo's doing, the stuff that is outside, and I'm doing the stuff that's inside. And particularly for a piece that is on this topic in this way, both aspects are extremely, I mean, it is always extremely important, but particularly in the nature of this material.
Yeah, and of course, all directors, we all want to be all and do all and be outside in and inside out. And I think in this collaboration, we kind of took like the two fields. And when we were talking about the scenes, I would be like, no, but this is a musical. And then no, but dramaturgically. And I'm like, but this is a musical. And it was, so it was really actually fun and to do that. And directing is such a lonely gig. You just feel so alone sometimes, and I felt like that this was never lonely. We always had each other to count on and to actually like throw ideas around. So I think that was actually like a very exciting thing about this process for me. And also, of course, and I think I was clearly I was the last one to join this ship. And it was so wonderful to actually just be in a place where I would just hold space open to everyone's talents, right? Like and when I say I, is of course I and Daniela, but just there's such a wonderful group of people all around. It's just so impressive. And it's like, we all know, like us as theater makers, those times when you're like, oh, that's why we do it. That's why we do it. That's why it's fun. That's why we do what we do and endure the hardships of a life in the arts, right? And then just, like when we would see like Anita's set come out, and like the first time I was like, oh my God, this is gonna be so great. And then we would see like Chris's lights. And then of course the cast was just so amazing, and they created a family too amongst themselves, and such a great relationship. And yeah, and it's just this was a gift. And also Portland Stage whole team, and I kept telling like Anita was like, this is such a wonderful team you have in this theater, and it's like, and it makes it one of it makes it a home. And I think I, as an artist, I have like two big values, and I keep repeating them because they are so important. That is, joy is one of them, and a sense of home is the other one. And I feel like this is absolutely fundamental to me and to my practice. And we had it both. Daniela, your turn.
Yes.
I think you should describe the Chinese restaurant where Danilo figured out.
Yeah. So I will say that it's amazing how you really think you know what a musical needs, and then you do the reading, and then you learn a bunch of things, and then you have, and then it's like, oh wait, now we have it all figured out, but then you don't. And so I would say that there was sort of like once we knew that we were co-directing it, we set up a bunch of Zoom readings or workshops where we just all read all the roles and we learned a lot. And this incredible creative team did a bunch of rewriting. So then we began first rehearsal and we had a little bit of time with some actors, but we really began rehearsal with no in-person workshop time immediately before, which made sense because, you know, it had been a long development process. So everybody felt really ready. And so we read, but we don't sing because we aren't ready to sing because that cast doesn't know the piece yet. And so we learn some things from the reading and have some meetings and some tweaks could happen. And then the cast starts learning music. And then Thursday, and you know, this is April 15th, basically, and the show's opening is May 6th. So there ain't a lot of wiggle room in terms of time to learn a lot and to do a lot with what we learn. But here we are, and it's April 15th, I believe, and we have the first basically read sing through. And as we do the read sing through, we really realize something very important about Act 2. We realize that it is at least 10 minutes too long and that there is a bunch of things that do not work. And it is a bummer. And we all know it. I mean, the good thing is we didn't have to jockey with anybody to be like someone who was like, no, that was brilliant. Don't change a word. We were all like, oh, shit. And so we, you know, just all kind of hunkered in together. And I would say what was great is that there was just sort of a great sense of humility and collaboration and like, let's do this and not panic. And then Danilo had an incredible vision of a particular song that he acted out the whole thing. he staged it and acted it. He had the internal and external just great. He was basically everybody's understudy. And so that helped with the rewrite of a solo that then became a duet, which was definitely a favorite of Act 2 or just of the show. You know, so I just think that there was many things that were happening at this Thai restaurant with really slow service that helped us figure out what we really needed to do. And then really credit to Darrah, Willy, and Louise for just going, okay, here we go. And we have to figure stuff out in the next 48 hours. And there really isn't a lot of wiggle room to fuck it up. Sorry, to mess it up, because there just isn't actually the time. And so to give a cast that doesn't have a lot of time a rewrite that doesn't work and then go back to the drawing board will be incredibly problematic. And so fortunately, there was such clarity about what needed to happen and the team was able to activate in such a focused way. And the cast was so willing and game that the changes were put into motion quickly, fast, and were able to be fully realized. And then literally, I think Act 1 and Act 2 are now, you know, 1 minute difference every night. You know, they're very well timed with one another. I don't know how exactly it happened, but really the whole flow of the show went so well. And I think sometimes that it's so hard. My experience has been both as AD of Rattlestick and just directorially that sometimes it feels really challenging to make changes early because, you know, I've definitely been in experiences where writers are feeling like, would I really need to see something fully realized before I understand if this act needs to change? And I think both because of all of the experience that this team has, just life experience and creative experience and experience with the show, they were able to go, you know what, we don't actually have time to wait for a preview. We are going to do the work that needs to be done right now, take advantage of the process. And they did, and they hunkered in. And that was a critical moment for the process.
Beautifully written, beautifully said.
There was also a moment I should add that, well, it helped that Darrah and Louise and Danielle and I were staying in the same place. So we could work late, get up early, show pages, and that moved it along. But we were very excited that after our bad typhoon that we had what looked like a fix, what we thought was a fix to Act 2 until Daniela popped up in rehearsal the next day and said, "It's not ending at the right place." So then we rewrote the ending. So
Oh, yeah, that
we
was
forgot that
like
one.
tech or, yeah, that was
That was
towards the end.
tech.
Yeah, we had to end the show a little bit earlier. Yeah, that was good.
I mean, I think it just speaks to this whole process has been one where everybody has really kept their eye on what the show is and what's going to serve this production the best it possibly can, so that there is a sense of ownership, but there's also just this immense sense of responsibility to the work and to Sabina Spielrein to get this story across in the most powerful way we can. And from Willy's incredible font of information about her life and Jung and Freud, and you want to know anything about any date in their lives, and Willy can tell you. So it's just, everybody was just, I was so impressed by people's ability to be in service to the show.
I was almost going to say the same thing, Anita, and that I when I left Portland to come home after the staying that weekend of opening, I kept saying to myself, why do I feel so different about this particular experience? And what is it about going to that show that feels so important? And I couldn't put my finger on it for the longest time, but I do think it's that we're bringing her back, and that has a physical presence. It's got a something. I don't know what it's a thing, and it makes being in the theater, watching that story absolutely it's like a life force of its own. It's there's a huge responsibility to her memory to tell it right, but in this day and age, when we mentioned Me Too, but we also are aware of Roe versus Wade being challenged and women's rights being challenged, and to bring somebody back from obscurity who was so important to mental health, and to Jung's work, it's like giving it life again. It's a little alchemical.
Yeah, I want to say something too about mental health. I feel like we are, as a society, going through a mental health crisis, and we are dealing with this situation that we don't fully understand all the reverberations it has on our psyche, on our souls. And then Sabina's journey is just a journey that is so extreme of suffering, extreme of loving, and extremes of devotion. And it really was really special to find Stephanie Machado to do this role. I feel she's just so wonderful, so professional, so talented, so meticulous in her work, and she makes it feel that it's all coming naturally. But whenever we are talking to her and giving notes and adjustments, she reveals the net of her thought behind it, and then it's so beautiful to see when she opens the crack and you see kind of like the machinery inside of her, and then she changes it and closes it again, and it just makes it a beautiful performance. It is a powerhouse performance. It is an endurance performance, and she has done it consistently in such a wonderful way. And of course, and I'll have to acknowledge our whole cast that has done incredible work also in helping us develop the staging. It was sort of a lot of things were like crowdsourcing the way that like we staged it. There is a whole like waltz sequence that was really us on the floor crowdsourcing it. Like, how do we actually do it? A dance that is actually really a storytelling dance. And I feel like it's really important to acknowledge how do you portray mental health challenges in a respectful way, but in a full way, deep way, and a way that actually reaches us and touches us. And most importantly, that doesn't hurt the performer, right? This is something really important that we had to like just be aware of, mindful of, and this was also like, this has been a really successful process in that direction too.
I think maybe this is why the piece is so different now and has always been timely, but feels particularly relevant right now, is what everyone is saying, like that we've all been through so very much. And I think the understanding, there's a line of the piece that the asylum door swings both ways, you know, and that it's so fragile how you hold on to your sanity, and one's empathy towards others, I think, is heightened at this moment, and hopefully will continue to be. But it has been really remarkable to watch the audiences really lean in. They're hungry for something that resonates with them deeply, with the need to love, to be seen, to not be forgotten, to be cared for, to investigate the complexities around power, visibility and invisibility, and legacy, that feel particularly resonant these days.
And I would just add that I'm glad that we did the show now and not 2 years ago and not 15 years ago. And
Yeah.
by the way, the music director is the same one we were in Madison with 15 years ago. So that was serendipity. I just feel like you guys, yes, we're all different. I'm a different person. I'm writing different music than I was 20, 15 years ago. And hopefully it's deeper and from a place of poignancy. I finally realized that's actually a term of the later part of your life. You reach a phase of poignancy, and I think when you're in that, unfortunately or fortunately, when you're in that place, you're writing different, your material coming out of you is different. But also I think you cannot underestimate these two, Daniela and Danilo, and Anita was on those early calls too, the dramaturgy, the sense of having a loving eye on our material, basically in a loving way, questioning everything. Why is she doing that? Why is she saying that? Why do you have that song? I remember once she turned to Danilo and said, why should they dance about America? And he said, because it's a musical. Why should they be dancing? Everything was questioned. So that sense of loving attention, and when anyone has attention on them with that kind of love and respect, something happens, magic happens. And then the sense of loving hands from Portland Stage. I've never had a production, so that was all new to me, that the sound designer went home and but he was so sad about the ending. It's like, really, Charles? Everybody was affected in their own way, and their loving hands came together in a synergy that just blew me away. So let's not underestimate those two pieces.
And the revelations just piled up, and the most recent one came the other day with the school matinee, which I was dreading. I thought this is going to be the worst possible audience for this show, and it turned out to be the best. I mean, these were kids who weren't born yet when we started working on it. So put it in perspective, and they got it. You know, Sabina, the protagonist, we follow her over a number of years, but for most of the story, she's 18 and 19, and brilliant and horribly misunderstood, with visions that she has trouble explaining, and their heads were nodding. They just so connected to her. And at intermission, Anita ran up to me and said, it's a young show. It's a young show. And Anita was absolutely right. I mean, so you think you know your show, and in the best possible way, you don't, and the audience is teaching you about it, which is a lovely experience to have. And it seems to happen a lot at Portland Stage.
Amazing. I have a question. This is so rich, but I was curious too, Anita, with, being in the conversation as both the designer and producer, were those different, were the two ways that you were working on the project, were there different questions that you were asking in this development process, or were you more designer, were you more producer? Or I'm just sort of curious about that too, because you have both responsibilities, both within and also from your theater's perspective.
Well, I think I see my role in both aspects as being a collaborator. And what is it that is going to best tell this particular story? How are we best doing it? And sometimes you want the scenery to do something special for you, and other times you want it to get out of the way. And it's my responsibility to work with the whole team to figure out, how do we shape this? How do I shape physical space so that the ideas that Danilo has about movement, and it was so exciting to step into the rehearsal room where things are just taped out and see what he had staged and go, he gets it. He gets what this space is and how simple it is and how clean it can be, instead of piling stuff in and on and having to wait. Like this play just moves, and we stay with the characters. We don't get caught up in stuff that has to come on and off stage. And that makes such a difference in how it dynamically goes. And I don't know how to separate out producing from that creative force of design that I do. It's all part of the same.
Beautiful. And I love what you were saying, Willy, about this sort of how the audience teaches you about the play. And I think that's also the sort of the life force of theater, because it continues to evolve as a result of that engagement with your audiences, both within a run and then whatever is next. I guess I'm curious if I mean, I don't know, is it finished? Like, do you feel that is this the articulation of the play?
We were just arguing over notes this morning.
All right.
We're never finished. We don't know what the next step is. We have one possibility that came up, but if there's never another production, we'll just keep working on it. It's what Darrah said earlier. There is just an enormous responsibility to Sabina's memory. We can't look at her in this show and not think about what's going on in Ukraine and places around the world. And so we really feel that deeply. So we'll never stop working on it.
I don't want to.
And don't underestimate Peregrine. Never underestimate.
I am wondering, and if you have, I don't know, additional thoughts. This is such a fascinating and beautiful conversation about process and collaboration in the moment. I also, are there questions from our guests? Are you interested in having questions from our guests? Yeah. Can we Tyler? While people are, if they have any questions in our audience, you can put them in the chat. Yep, thank you. And I can keep an eye out there. If there are questions about
while we're waiting for
please.
questions, I just want to say one quick thing that is so amazing is meeting Darrah, Willy. Well, I had met Willy's family, but Darrah, Willy, and Louise's family around the performance, and how powerful it is to see a family love and support up, their beloveds through the decades. So for any of you listening that are artists, give some special love to your people for loving you for the long journeys of whatever it is that you're on, because it is a long journey for whatever it is. So I was just very, very moved to meet the families and hear how much the music had been sticking with them for all of these years and how much this piece had.
That's great. Thank you for saying that. I really think one of the things that I really love about this story, I mean, I love all aspects of it. I mean, but is the investment of the time that it does. There's no one way to make a play. There's no one way to be an artist. And I feel like this is such the confluence of all of that, what you brought to this conversation, obviously what you brought to the production, and so inspiring. It's really inspiring. I want to share some things that are coming up in the chat, and one is from Ben Krywatz, who was able to make it today, and he says hello, and it was thrilling. It's thrilling to hear about this, and remembers the earlier versions. It sounds like you all really went on a journey and created something spectacular. Look forward to seeing the stream. Peregrine, it did make it here, yay. Here's a question. Oh, that's coming up, I guess. Who's running the live stream, and do we have a link? It's go ahead, Anita.
It's at Portland Stage, and you can go to our website and click on, and it's a single view, and it's a $25 purchase. So it's there. It's not quite. We filmed it last Thursday. So we're in the process of editing it right at the moment to make sure it's all there and clean. So it'll be up probably by the weekend, would be my guess. And then it's up for 3 weeks, I believe.
I can type a link here. I just answered
perfect.
Laura to you the link.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Danilo. Thank you. I wonder too, because we've been talking about collaboration, and I know that this has come up, and Danilo was talking about the woman playing Sabina. Do you want to call out your other actors? Because I feel like, as you've been alluding to, it's everyone who was in the spirit, and it clearly that's part of that alchemy and that energy that is, making this conversation so vibrant. So would you go on? Bring them into the room, please.
100%. Like, our Sabina is Stephanie Machado. Our Jung is Philip Studer. Jason Michael Evans is playing our Binswanger. Sarah Ann Fernandez is playing our Emma Jung, Jung's wife, and Bruce Sabbath is playing our Freud. All wonderful, and I miss them so dearly.
And we should mention that because of COVID, they couldn't go out and have parties and have fun while they were in Portland. They've been so committed and so dedicated that they went home every night, and isolated themselves and wore their masks, and they've kept healthy because of that. But that was a strain. They're young people, except for Bruce, but he's young. And, it was hard to be in such a fun city. That's the funnest city around. And it was hard on them, I think. But we went by one night and they were all out on the patio. So they were outside. They were at least able to see each other when the weather turned good. But, that was a real commitment that was amazing.
I think we should, because we have fantastic designers on this show too. So Chris Ackerlin did the lighting, Charles Coase did sound design, and Fabian Aguilar did fantastic costumes. And we had an apprentice who was the assistant director and did a lot of the script work, Meredith Healy. And I think she's been an invaluable team member too.
And Brad Veith, musical director, our good friend from 15 years ago, did just an amazing job with a small ensemble that had never worked together, that kind of steal the thunder in the right-hand lower corner of the audience. And August Eriksman, our orchestrator, come from Away nominee. He's just an amazing, he did an amazingly quirky, edgy, lush, all when appropriate, just kind of an amazing job at the orchestrations.
Great. Thank you. What an amazing team. I have one more question, and then comes from, it's Emily Gardner Shue Hall, who is a BMI composer and lyricist, and now also a BMI librettist. She also did composer librettist studio with us several years ago. She says hi to Ben. I was curious about your process regarding the musical theater versus music theater question. Would you mind speaking a little bit about the specifics of how you approached writing certain moments of your show? For example, what was a moment in your piece where you felt compelled to write in one direction or another, and why? Did I get that all right, Emily?
You know, Louise, don't you think that would be the opera? The end of Act 1.
Yeah.
So we wrote an opening number. We wrote individual I am songs in the first act. That's kind of musical theater. But when we got to, there were two places in the story where Sabina is in therapy. And one is where she starts therapy, and the last is where she and Jung create Jungian analysis basically together. It's this huge moment where he breaks through her psychosis. And it had to be operatic for a number of reasons that I don't want to give away that have to do with the plot, which is why it's perfect, but also it's where we went. It was organic to the event of the scene. And
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was a conscious decision at all. If I got a song like "Every Father Needs a Son," that became kind of a shticky borscht kind of borscht belt, borscht belt song, and it wasn't a conscious decision. It's just responsive on my part, immersive maybe. But because Ben gave me this definition that was broad enough to encompass all kinds of musical responses, I felt like I didn't need to make any conscious decisions. I just kind of go where my intuition and my musical sensibilities led me. And the book, the characters, the story.
Also, I think this isn't on the writing front, but Danilo has so much experience in musical theater and in opera. And I think that helped for the realization of what those moments are, the range of operatic moments and the range of musical theater, and the cast did as well. And so it feels like a piece can be flexible in form and aesthetic that way, as long as the collaborators can hold hands while stretching in that way. And so there was a full embrace actually of the range of aesthetics that the writers were bringing with, Danilo's focus directorially on the range of that aesthetic and the cast and designers' ability to go in that fluid way. So it feels like if everyone's on the same page, that you're asking a piece to do many things and not live in too narrow of a lane, it can, as long as there's communal embracing of that.
Just based on that, what you just said, and thank you for all of that. Because I suspect some of the co-directing was practical, right? That's because you set up from the beginning, you couldn't do all of it. You were bringing in a co-director. I'm curious too. So there was a practical aspect to it, but it also sounds like there was delineation of strengths, and how that also became a kind of necessary part of the way this realized itself. Is that fair to say? Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Danilo is brilliant at staging and choreography and physical storytelling, and visualizes things in so many incredible and dynamic ways. And so, there were times when I saw something in a different way, and we would talk about it and maybe expand in a different way, or maybe not, and my come from was focusing more dramaturgically on rewrites and things that needed to happen with the writers. And so that was primarily my avenue of things, where characters might not be making the turn as fully as they could, be it in the writing or the performance, and then we would chat about those things. So yeah, I tried to tend to parts of the production, and Danilo tended to other parts, and I would wish for everybody to have another half along the way. And it makes it a lot less lonely, a lot more fun. And as Danilo said, no one person can do everything, although we always pretend that directors can do everything. And directors are one of the most under-resourced avenues of support for the American theater, which is, we also talk a lot about that, Danilo and I. You know, there's not many fellowships and places that really support and love up the director community. So it is really great we were able to have each other.
And I don't believe you were halves. I would believe you were two wholes, you know, on this. So there's no half. Co does not mean
That's a line
half.
from the show.
What?
I
That's
think
a line from the show.
I think that's a better rewrite of our song.
I wanted to talk a minute more about the opera versus music, theater versus musical question. Sabina Spielrein went from being a patient in Zurich to being a psychiatric student at the medical school. And in those days, you wrote a dissertation before you received your medical degree. And her dissertation was about her experience of schizophrenia. And so we had that as a guide as we worked through creating this show. And so Darrah and Louise, you know, created this brilliant musical language. And there was never any question of shoehorning it into a typical musical theater categories. And then as we, you know, the collaboration expanded to include directors, it was the same freedom and the same when we started working with Anita and the designers. It was, and we always had Sabina as our guide.
I know, I'm ready to do a road trip, this to Portland, to Maine, Portland, Maine, to see it through this weekend. Is that right, Anita? And then the streaming through June 5th. Yeah. Oh, you're muted, Anita.
We are live in Portland through a Sunday matinee on the 22nd of May, and the show is fantastic in person, and then we will be streaming. Yeah, so I hope you can either come up. Maine is gorgeous at this time of year, so it's a good trip. But if you can't make it this week, you still can stream it and see it in your own home.
Fantastic, don't miss it. Before we wrap up, because I did promise about an hour, this has been so rich and deep and covered a lot, and I really appreciate that. I appreciate everyone coming to listen to this really quite remarkable journey. Are there any final things that you want to say that you haven't, creative team that's here with us today? No? Okay, well then I will just express my tremendous gratitude to all of you for being here. Willy, Anita, Danilo, Louise, Daniela, Darrah, your incredible team who's not here, but they've been here, I feel, in spirit. I just love hearing about this story of how Sabina arrived at this production and at this moment in time, which feels, you know, like part of the components of what's made it so powerful. I also want to thank the team who made this webinar happen today, which is New Dramatists staff members Naveen Chaudhry, who's our communications and advocacy manager, and Tyler Christie, associate director of the Playwrights Lab at New Dramatists, and Michael Hudson, the marketing and communications director at Portland Stage Company. Thank you all for being here with us today and sharing the story. Thank you. So,
Hi.
Bye-bye.
bye, everybody.